Ambassador Saab, let me come to you with the perspective in terms of how we're looking at India in terms of what has been going on for quite some time. Of course, the issues with the way that the world is ranking India in terms of freedom of press, with the way that these incidents are taking place, and how we've seen previously also that any sort of dissenting voice, any sort of media agency or journalist that talks against the policies of the current BJP-led government is often subject to such treatment. And so it brings to question whether or not there is any freedom of expression or freedom of media in the country. But then I also want to know, if that is the case, then how is it that India still gets to survive in a place where it calls itself secular, democratic, and a champion of such rights of freedom of expression and others, while at the same time taking such actions on the ground without anybody batting an eyelid? Dr. Jameel, can you hear me?
Right, I can hear you now quite well. Well, India, they are taking its advantage of its geopolitical alignment and positioning, and that's why with such a serious violation of the freedom of expression, not only freedom of expression but also freedom of movement, minorities, you name any, and they are trying to violate so many international laws. For example, even Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 18, there is a violation India is making and just for free. Article 19, again, freedom of opinion. There are so many other covenants of the world, the international covenant for the economic, social, and cultural rights, that also speaks for the freedom of the speech and freedom of expression. International of the civil and political rights, Article 19, that also very clearly guided upon that. So India is not concerned, under Modi regime, any international law, whether it's a resolution of the Security Council in terms of Kashmir, or whether it's a religious freedom report of the United States, or whether it's a human rights report which is more than 100 pages each twice, and they have indicated all the violations that no one less than the Human Rights Commissioner with a tear rolling down his cheeks, he had mentioned of the kind of biggest violation which has been taking place, not only in the mainly of the human rights, and in that he also expressed about the freedom of press. In addition, the Secretary General report was published, and that was published just about 2 years ago. They have also mentioned and covered not only Kashmir, but also the press freedom and the freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So all these examples, what I have quoted to you, is basically the testimony or the demonstration that the international laws are being violated in the Modi administration. And that's why those which are independent agencies and organizations, they have already downgraded India from 140 to 150 during Modi regime in their ranking of Press Freedom Index. So and then more importantly, there are about 67 journalists, they've been killed during the Modi regime, and only in as compared to 2021, the killing of the journalists have risen to almost 50% higher. More than 200 serious attempts on the journalists have already taken place. So all these are on record. It's not that we are just speaking something which is not really found on the record of what are in literature or the press. So, fundamental question how India is ready from basically we are quite as I said, line both economic line, both important with the cards or with allies of the United States, and because of the containment of China policy of the United States, they are just ignoring all international law. So I don't think the freedom of expression or freedom of press in any regime is going to improve even by an iota. So this seems to be going on, and this seems to go on unabated. And the world probably is not. If there was some other country, by now the international laws they could have been invoked, and even the resolution in Security Council would have been passed. But it is not happening. And India by itself, the scholars of India, the human rights activists of India, intellectuals of India, and a sizable percentage of India who are of the tech India, just afraid of under the regime of the Modi government. And the way out, unless something important happens, the very posture of Modi taking place for winning the next election, based on radicalization, based on marginalization of the minority, and based on the violation, gagging the press by criticizing and deleting the PDP documentary and imposing restriction on the documentary. And they don't stop there. Twitter, YouTube, all video clips, they are deleting it. They're trying to just hide it from the eyes of those people who are really for democracy and the real democracy and the secularism. Yes.
Right, Dr. Jameel, then in this context, when we see how perhaps so many other countries, other organizations and individuals are now perhaps understanding in terms of the number of incidents that have been pointed out, what's the role and the way that the deterioration in India is now impacting relations and aspects for different countries. Do you think that perhaps this is something that can be preemptively acted upon? Because it seems that only after certain incidents have already taken place is such kind of a reaction coming forward. Are we still waiting for perhaps a situation to get even worse before there is any sort of stop to what is going on in India?
Well, India has been quite used to violating all the international law and the human rights within and outside India with its neighbors, maybe Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. But first time, they have taken some initiative. The Indian government, Modi government, has taken some initiative by killing people outside. That's a transnational killing. And that has been taken very seriously by the Western world, such as Canada, UK, US, France, Australia. And they've already shown their concern, and they're asking India to cooperate in the investigation of Canada. And Canada, Five Eyes, have already given its full account to the Canadian government. They're monitoring it also. So this time it seems that Indian authorities, particularly those who were involved and those who carry out such operations elsewhere, transnational assassinations, they are quite worried, and it's quite worrisome for them. Although, as I mentioned earlier, India, because of its geoeconomic advantage and geopolitical advantage, is still trying to exploit. And more importantly, now the Modi government is, Modi party is now in the election campaign. So probably they would probably like to take this pressure by the Western countries. To what extent they can do it, I think time would come. But the Western countries, Canada and those who are supporting Canada and particularly in this, because this is a very serious violation of United Nations Charter, in which the sovereignty, as the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, has mentioned it in its parliament, that it's a matter of sovereignty of Canada. And that has equally been taken serious by UK and Germany, France, and Australia. So what I'm envisaging that this time, if the resolution is tabled in the Security Council, it will be very hard for the United States to straightway veto it. They can do lobbying from the United States and its allies, but because of the pressure from their own country, from their own human rights activists, from their own organizations, from their own think tanks, from their own NGOs, these respective countries, including United States and other countries and its allies, despite the fact that they have their interest in India, they would probably find it very hard to veto any if that
Right.
stage reaches. If India does not cooperate because these violations warrant invoking some international law. So if that happens, then the resolution at the last stage resolution could be tabled on the Security Council. That could
Right.
become very complicated for India.
All right.